Hello everyone, welcome to the Learning Library. My name is Debbie and we're reading a Norwegian folktale, Ola, O-L-A. And let me show you that picture right there. I don't know if you'll be able to notice, but Scandinavian, which is kind of where we're headed, Scandinavian drawing it has its own look to it. So let's go ahead, we'll read Ola. And one of the things in this story is they're going to make a reference to the map of Norway. So let's take a look at that. So here it is, starting at the top and going all the way down to the bottom. They reference it as looking like a spoon. What does that look like to you? To me, that looks like a sleeping giraffe, maybe sitting on its legs, and his legs are underneath them. But that's what it looks like to me. Also, some Scandinavian drawings. All right, let us begin. So, here is a picture of a Scandinavian boy, Norwegian boy specifically. Far up in the north, the sun is afraid to show his pale face in winter, but the moon and the stars love the sparkling frost. They gleam fairy-like through the long night, and the Arctic lights leap across the sky in cold, silent flames. They glitter on the snow and the ice of a long mountainous country down below. In their magic light, the country looks like a huge silver spoon. Remember, I thought it looked like a sleeping giraffe? In the book, it says, in their magic light, the country looks like a huge silver spoon, thousands of miles long. So here's the light they're talking about. It's kind of like the aurora borealis. This is Norway. So that was Norway, the long spoon on the map. This is Norway, and it is the strangest country in the world. It is so crowded with mountains, forests, huge trolls, red-capped gnomes, and alluring Huber maidens that only a few human people have room to live there. And in this country, there is a forest. In winter, a very strange forest. For under the heavy burden of snow, the trees turn into a crowd of solemn creatures. And in the middle of the forest, there was a small little house. And in this house, there lived a small boy. Ola was his name. His eyes were light blue. His tousled hair was yellow, and his face was rosy with much fresh air. With sleepy eyes, Ola peered out through the tangle of frost roses on his window. And we'll take a look at those frost roses. The flaring Arctic lights, aurora borealis, had awakened him, and he decided to put his clothes on and go out for a while to look around. Strange adventures might wait for him behind the quaint paintings on the old door. So he opened the door and went out. At the gate, a moose was standing, and some hares played quietly around Ola while he fastened his skis to his feet. But when he wanted to join their play, they scampered, frightened, to all sides. A small hare was so stupid that it just ran in front of Ola's skis. "Run on, my 7-league boots," said Ola to his skis. Let us see if you can catch that hare. And here he is. He's trying to catch that hare. For a long time, he followed the hare and could not overtake it. But when he came to a very steep slope, his skis started to race down so fast that they caught up with the hare. Quick-witted Ola squatted down and grabbed that hare. Down the slope they flew, faster and faster. Now let's stop for a second. What do we see back there in the back? Is that the sun? But hey, this is supposed to be, let's see, let me go back real quick. I want to see what time did it say. It didn't say what time he was up, but it did say the flaring Arctic lights had awakened him. So he was sleeping sometime in the nighttime when you sleep and I sleep. And yet there was this flaring Arctic light. Interestingly, is that the morning sun, or is that a really low sun like they have in more northern countries where the sun stays out a really long time during the day and it's really low? I don't know that much about it. That's interesting. Let's pay attention to that sun and see what happens. So he catches the hare, he's zooming on down, and he goes right over a high bank. Him and the hare tumble down. Some girls happen to be standing under the bank. You see a hat and a hare. And when a white hare and a red cap fell at their feet right from the sky, they were sure it was a gnome who wanted to play hide and seek with them. And they looked all over for this gnome, but instead of a gnome, they saw Ola high up in the tree. I caught hold of these branches, he boasted. Help me down, you silly girls. And so they did. And they told him they were Surrey Turry, Randy and Gurry, Mary and Carrie and Grow. And he might as well come along with them to the wedding in the next valley. Ola joined the girls and they rushed down to a big farm where the buildings played merry-go-round around a leafless birch tree. From the big storehouse and scullery, maids were carrying all kinds of delicious foods. There was butter and brown goat cheese shaped like animals and castles. There were stacks of flatbread, large as millstones and thin as leaves, and trout and meat and porridge and cakes. There was also a big bowl of ale, and on its surface swam small duck vessels like ducks on a pond. The children heard music from the main house, and so they ran to a window to peep in. At the fireplace sat an old fiddler, playing and singing, and at a long table the wedding party was seated. The bride looked just like a princess with a huge silver crown on her head, and the groom had silver buttons wherever there was a place on his suit. The bridal feast was to last for several days, and this was just a light meal to give the wedding party strength for the long ride to the church. Now, I've looked and I have no idea who the groom is and who the bride is. Maybe you can see. When lunch was over, the whole party came out and climbed into sleighs. And they started off, and the children hung on behind. The girls were soon thrown off, and only Ola managed skillfully to keep on. Up and down hills they flew. But suddenly, as they approached the church, a howling black dragon rushed out from a cave. It plowed through the drifts that blocked its way, throwing the snow this way and that and covering the whole wedding party. The dragon swallowed me, thought Ola, and he did not dare to move. The parson and the sexton helped the others out of the snow. And they stepped into the church as if nothing had happened. Only a red cap was left over, as it did not belong to anyone in the party. That's quite a church, isn't it? Look at that. Wow. A Scandinavian church. After a while, Per Peddler, and that was the name, Per Peddler, passed and stopped to pick up the red cap, and he was surprised to find a yellow tuft beneath it. As he pulled, Ola came up. Ola was afraid Per Peddler would laugh at him if he told him about the dragon, so he said, "Oh, I just dug myself into a hole." "So," said Per Peddler, but the Lapps don't live like that, meaning dug into snow. They live in tents and have reindeers. I am on my way there now. Oh, please, Peddler, take me along," Ola begged. All right," said Per Peddler. "You may help me carry." They traveled over mountains and valleys and rivers and lakes, always to the north. The days grew shorter and shorter till at last the sun did not show himself at all. At noon there was just a dim light and the roads ended, but Ola and Peddler went on and on. So I'm going to make a little pit stop here. We're going to go all the way to the front of the book, and we have our map. And if you look all the way to the top, these words up here say Lap here. So that is where the native people of Norway, called the Lapps, lived all the way up at the top. So apparently they're walking a pretty long distance to get all the way north to the Lapps, where Per Peddler wants to go. All right, so we learned that the days grew shorter and shorter till at last the sun did not show himself at all. At noon, there was just a dim light. The roads ended, but Ola and Per Peddler went on and on. At last they met a Lapp who was herding a flock of reindeer. The deer were all digging for moss under the snow. Nearby were the Lapp tents. And while Per Peddler was busy trading, Ola stared at the reindeer and Lapp children just as curiously as they stared at him. Then Ola and Per Peddler went on south again over wild mountains where a furious storm was raging. Suddenly, Per Peddler's huge knapsack blew open and all his nice goods were scattered all about. Oh, look at him just hanging on. Oh, what's in his... Oh, look at that stuff that's in his sack. Wow. Reminds me of Santa a little bit. Not far away, there was a fishing village on the shore of the Arctic Ocean. "Oh, don't worry," said Per Peddler to Ola. "While I go to get new goods, you can go fishing. Look at that fishing village. So it's all around the banks, and inside are all these fish. I wonder what kind of fish they are. The first thing Per Peddler did when he came to the fishing village was to buy Ola a fisherman's outfit, and dressed in that, Ola at once got to work. All day long he spent out on the fishing grounds, pulling in cod. So those were codfish. Ola liked it. Sometimes his boat was deep in a wave valley, and the fishermen in the boats nearby looked as if they were sitting in water up to their necks. Sometimes his boats were high on a water mountain, and Ola could see hundreds of other fisher boats gathered from all parts of Norway. Ooh, look at that choppy, wavy little area for fishing. Up and down they must go on those waves. The fishermen told Ola that strange people live in small houses at the bottom of the sea, and they have lots of goats grazing on their grass roofs. But these goats are very greedy for the tidbits of the fishing hooks, and to their owner's horror, the goats get drawn right up and change into codfish. The fishermen showed Ola bits of goat beard on the chins of the codfish. They took Ola to the place where the water was boiling and whirling around a black cliff. I'm going to show you this picture first. So this is the little villages underneath the water way down at the bottom. And look at the codfish way up top. And they say those are the goats changing into codfish. And people live down there apparently. They took Ola to a place where the water was boiling and whirling around a black cliff. That is the Maelstrom, they said. Here at the bottom, a man and his wife sit quarreling over their huge kettle of food. He stirs this way and she stirs that way, and the water becomes so terribly rough that no ship can sail across it. In the evening, when they come back to the harbor, they all work together preparing the codfish. They cleaned the fish and hung them on racks to dry. And the livers they steamed into delicious cod liver oil. They gave Ola a very large fish for himself and a can of cod liver oil. All of a sudden, spring was there. The codfish went off to the great ocean, and the fishermen sold their catch and sailed for their faraway homes. Ola decided that he would go home too. Boy, the weather changed quite a bit, didn't it? He had heard that he could go most of the way by ship. So he saw a boat lying deserted at the shore, and he crawled into it, and he just rowed off. He had not rowed far, however, when the wind blew the clouds right over him. In the fog, Ola could not see his hand before his face. But he rode on, and suddenly his hair stood straight up on his head, for he heard a terrible howl as from many wild animals. Oh, he looks worried. But the fog lifted, and there he saw a boat loaded with cats. "These terrible cats," said the man who rowed the boat. They are furious because I took them away from the birds' inlet where the birds may hatch in peace. So the cats are mad because this guy took them all, put them in a boat, and wouldn't let them be in the inlet where the birds are trying to nest and hatch their babies. Okay, that's okay. On one of the inlets, Ola saw a little girl crying. I want my kitten back, she sobbed. Never mind, said Ola. You'll get your kitten back in the fall. Show me the birds now. All right, said the little girl. You can help me gather eider down. I'll give you an empty sack. All right. So among the grass and heather, the eider ducks were sitting on their nests. The nests were softly lined with down, and the birds did not mind when the children came and took some of it away. After they had filled the sacks with this eider down from the ducks, they climbed a steep cliff, and here millions of cormorants, gulls, sea parrots, and auks had their nest. Look at all those birds. My goodness. At the top of the cliff, a crowd of children came running towards them. I'm going to turn back. Did you see what was at the very top of this little mountain? What is that? Apparently, it is children. And it says at the top of the cliff, a crowd of children came running towards them. Look at our beautiful midnight sun. Okay, so there's that midnight sun that just goes across the horizon, but never really goes down and becomes fully dark. Midnight. Ooh. It won't set for many weeks, and all that time, we may be up all night. Ola looked and saw hundreds of cliffs shaped like strange animals. The red sun rolled along their backs. Suddenly, he saw a ship sailing southward between the cliffs, and on deck, he recognized Per Peddler. Per Peddler had chartered the ship and loaded it with dried cod. Now he was on his way to Bergen to sell it. Wait, wait, cried Ola. Take me on home. Per Peddler stopped the ship, and the children let Ola down on a rope. The little girl said he might keep the sack with down that he carried, and with his down, his fish, and his cod liver oil, Ola boarded the ship and sailed toward home. All righty. All right, you may end it here if you like. I do want to be respectful and read a very little tiny portion about the laps that they went to go see. So, publisher's note right here in the beginning, publisher's note. At the time this book was written in 1932, do you know that that was before the Second World War? The term Lapp, L-A-P-P, was commonly used to refer to the Sami people living in the northern regions of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Kola Peninsula in Russia. In recent decades, the Sami have distanced themselves from this word, considering it a derogatory label rather than a legitimate ethnic description. Our knowledge and appreciation of indigenous people have advanced significantly since this book was first published. to remain faithful to the author's language, and I am thankful they did do that. OLA is reprinted here in its original form as a contribution to Scandinavia's heritage, but we recognize the contemporary preference for Sami rather than the word Lap as the name for this culture. And that is the end. I hope you liked the book. OLA. See you next time.